This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're here in Leeds for the weigh-in ahead of Lara Warrington 2. With me, promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, feels a bit real now. Nerves starting to set in?
Yeah, I've been to Headingley this morning and it just looks unbelievable. Blessed, really, aren't we, to be able to be back in this kind of situation. Big crowd coming for the weigh-in. They're already queuing outside. 20,000 at Headingley tomorrow night. Great card. Can't wait. As a fan, can't wait. And nervous at the same time.
A lot of people have been talking this week about the blueprint for Josh being something similar to Ruiz Joshua 2, what we saw from Anthony Joshua. I think that's the kind of tactics we'll see from Josh in this fight.
Yeah, but I just don't think that's going to be. I don't think that he can fight like that. He likes to. Josh's strengths are frame combinations, work rate. So you don't want to just become a target that's getting walked down by Maurizio Lara. So he is at some point going to have to be in at close quarters. He is at some point going to have to be frame combinations up close. And that's when it becomes very dangerous against Lara, because that's what he did in the first fight, but very early. So, I see him fighting a little bit like Joshua in a Ruiz fight to a game plan, but he has to do the things that has made him become the best featherweight in the world, which is combinations, work rate, outwork his opponent. And when you're trying to outwork an opponent, you put yourself in the firing line to engage. Work Maurizio Lara's body, move in and out, stop trading up. But it's going to be one of those fights that you're going to have to watch through your fingers, because every single exchange is dangerous, and that's ultimately leads to a great fight to watch.
I want to touch on a couple more people on the cards. We talked about the fights themselves, but I wanted to ask you about Conor Benn. Yeah. He beat Adrian Granados and in good fashion on Saturday. Where for him, would he be maybe interested in something like an Adrian Barona fight?
Yeah, I want him to fight Amir Khan. I spoke to Amir about that fight. I know he's looking at sort of one more fight before he hangs him up, but this is the kind of fight that will tell us exactly where he's at. I mean, Vargas was a good example of that. This is a step up from Vargas, but he demolished Vargas. If he demolishes Granados, which I don't think he will, I think it's going to be a really tough fight. But it's going to show us, when we talk about Broner, when we talk about Porter, when we talk about all these other names, you have to prove that you're ready for that level. But we see it in the gym. This is not just hype that we're just saying, oh, he's Nigel Benn's son. This guy is a world-class welterweight, and he's a huge draw, and he's so exciting to watch. So looking forward to it, and a proper fight for Conor Benn on Saturday.
I see you went down to see AJ yesterday with Frank Smith and yourself went down. How is he?
He's really good. I mean, it's a wild camp. I mean, they've got he's always trying to improve. And what he's done is he's built a camp that's just getting better and better. Bit of a kind of like unheralded, champ is KD, King, who puts that camp together and does a tremendous job bringing in sparring partners, managing those sparring partners. You go down there and there's 8 sparring partners who are getting in, doing 2 rounds, 4 rounds, etc. You need someone to manage that camp, and KD does such a brilliant job in doing that. There's a good atmosphere, everyone's working for each other, they're not just sparring partners, they're training. AJ's working on everything, he looks in tremendous condition, he's ready. Just a few weeks to go now and just fine tune, doing many rounds of sparring. He looks in tremendous shape and in good spirits.
As much as we've seen Alexander Usyk bulking up for this fight, I saw some photos of AJ in training looking really lean. Is that what we're seeing from him? Is he cutting down?
No, he didn't look that lean yesterday, but I mean, he's just a unit, isn't he? I mean, I don't know what his weight will be. I guess he looks the similar kind of weight as the last Ruiz fight or the Pulev fight. It's more about just being boxing ready. I think back in the day, a lot of the training was focused around explosive stuff and lifting and stuff like that. And now it's just focused around boxing, which is the old school mentality. But that's what you do in the ring. And I think he's very smart what they've been working on. And don't know, I didn't see him with his top off, but he looks bloody big to me.
Just to ask you about a few things away from this bill and away from AJ. Terence Crawford and Sean Porter push back the purse bids. They're trying to get a deal done. That does go to purse bids, though. Are you guys interested in trying to land that fight?
Yeah, I think we'll be active in that purse bid. I mean, every fight, you can come out and you say, yeah, we're going to bid. But every fight, we'll sit down with DAZN, we'll look at the size of that fight, the amount of subscribers that will drive, and we'll put a model together to establish a value for that fight. And that's what we would bid. So I was a bit disappointed because I'd send someone, or about to send someone on a plane to go and bid for it, and I know there would have been 3 or 4 bidders, so we'll see if they get a deal done. If they don't, then yeah, we'd definitely be active in that bid.
So touch a bit more on the DAZN US shows that we can expect to be announced. I know Devin Haney's close to having a fight announced, but what's the latest with Demetrius Andrade? Could it be a Brit next?
Yeah, he's going to box in November. I mean, look, we know that you don't have to tell me he needs a big fight. I know he needs. I want him to have a big fight so desperately, but also at the same time, we have an obligation, a contractual obligation as well, to keep him busy. they've allowed us to go and try and make those big fights, Charlo and Golovkin. If they're not forthcoming, we have to look for a voluntary defence in November. And if I'm going to do that, I'd like to give an opportunity to someone who's relevant in a certain market, or quite frankly, someone we represent or someone I like. And Jason Quigley is a guy, an offer's been made there to him. Felix Cash is another guy who Tony Sims told me he would take that opportunity as well. And why not give it to them? Demetrius has to stay active, and while we're looking for those big fights, but they're not forthcoming. But he will go in November. It looks like we're just finalising the contracts for our October 16th fight, which we'll announce on Saturday on air. We may be doing 2 shows in the US in October. We also have a show in Mexico in October, a show in November, and then a show in December as well. And Devin Haney to probably go end of November as well, just looking at finalising his opponents, and had a call with him and Bill last night.
One thing I wanted to get your reaction to, Eddie, the news broke late last night that despite his A sample and his B sample coming back positive, Oscar Valdez has been cleared to fight in Arizona. Just wanted to get your initial reaction to that.
To be honest, I was just told it on the car on the way here, so I haven't seen the news or the WBC ruling on it, but I'll have a look, and maybe we'll catch up on it tomorrow, and I'll give you my opinion once I've reserved it. I think in all these situations, there are so many things that you hear and don't hear. It doesn't sound good, what you just told me, but I don't know anything about the ruling, the investigation or anything, so we'll have a look, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people talking about it over the next 24 hours.
Oscar's case was that through WADA, the substance he tested positive for wouldn't be banned until it was the day of the fight, but with VADA, it is a banned substance. With that in mind, with so many loopholes, who has to take responsibility in these situations?
In a lot of those situations, it all depends what the commission acknowledges. Do you remember with the Billy Joe Saunders situation? Yeah, it was an argument that on his UCAD test that was fine, but on his VADA test it wasn't. It's so confusing. I think that there needs to be a universal situation where governing bodies or commissions just acknowledge one list, because you've got a situation there where a fighter might think that a substance is fine. Well, it's fine on that list, it's not on that list, but it was on that list, and that's confusing. And whether a fighter is guilty or not guilty, that gives them the opportunity to say, well, like, this is the list that I've got, and it's not on that list. So it's a mess, as it always is, to be honest with you. I think that the only way, and I don't believe in that fight, I think that was a test done by a random test from the WBC. Yeah, you need to employ VADA testing from the get-go, and not 2 weeks out, but 8 weeks out, or even 12 weeks out, or 16 weeks out. All the major fights that we do have VADA testing from that period. AJ, Dillian White, all of these fights, even Warrington against Lara. Lara was tested, I think, 3 times by VADA during camp, not a random one by the WBC. We pay for that. It's about $25,000 per fight, right? And this is the problem, the cost. It's impossible to, but for the main event, for when there's so much on the line in those kind of fights, we have to be investing in testing. But you can't invest. The problem is with VADA is they can't sanction, right? So they report, and then you're left with someone else to sanction. So someone could be completely cheating, but if someone else says that's okay, they're fine. Do you know what I mean? So there's just it. And by the way, I think VADA, Margaret Goodman, I think they do a good job. But if the commissions and the testing companies and the results don't align into a conformed decision, you're always going to get bad decisions or controversial decisions. There almost needs to be a situation where the governing bodies get together and say, right, if this happens, if you test positive for a substance, these are the sanctions, right? And this is the process. Because at the moment it's case by case. And to be honest with you, there are many people in all sports that test positive that are not cheating. But there are also many people who do test positive that are cheating. So it's very, very tricky. And without knowing anything about the Valdez situation, I didn't know that substance wasn't on the banned list of WADA. So again, that brings in another complication, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it'll roll on and on.
All right, Eddie, I'm going to leave the final word to you because we're about to get going here. Why should everyone be tuning in Saturday night for this big card in Leeds?
I think enough people watch your channel, my friend, to know that this is an absolute corker. On Saturday night, all you got to do is tune into DAZN and watch. I think it's one of the best shows we've ever done. Full of drama. Don't miss it.
Eddie, thank you.